Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Anyway, tired all day walk. How many people walk today?
Walk where?
You day off. Anyway, everybody set up very perfect motivation. To achieve all full enlightenment in all sentient beings. First we think about that moment. Whenever all the we need towards a level of benefit all the sentient beings. Therefore, I want to achieve enlightenment as soon as possible.
So now you can meditate on that thought, thinking may I achieve state of full enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings.
That is why we need to achieve enlightenment, benefit all sentient beings. To keep caution for us. Why?
So why do we need to achieve state of full enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings?
It's the only way to attain Buddhahood.
That's it. What do you say?
It's the only way to attain Buddhahood.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, this good also, yeah. Then, and 산지 공부 들어라. 또 인심이 지면서 같이 생각이 되는데 또 그래서 소소도 산지 공부 들으러 와서.
Why do you need to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings? Why can't you just achieve enlightenment for yourself only?
That's the only way to become a Buddha, is to follow the Mahayana path and achieve enlightenment for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah.
It's the Mahayana path.
Okay, it's good. 근데 같이 샘시하게 되어도 산지 공부 도가 있나? 저다 같이 계속 수고하고 왔어.
So, if you achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, it is you yourself who gain, right?
Yeah, what do you say?
Yeah, I was going to say, because we're all interconnected. If everybody else is happy, I'm going to be happy. This is an interconnection, because we're all interconnected.
당간주 시당 뇌시지 상담되더라고 그래서 아주 가르치는 샘시하게 된 산지 공부도 그러나 근데 아주 샘시하게 대셔보고 그래서 샘시하게 대셔와라 산지의 공부 맡는 아주 샘시하게 대지도 제도 말해서.
So why do you need to achieve enlightenment is because in order to benefit the sentient beings, you must achieve state of full enlightenment, right? Without achieving state of full enlightenment, there's no way you can benefit sentient beings fully. So for that reason, you have to achieve state of full enlightenment.
That is why we need to 가르치는 샘시하게 따르는 샘시하게 배우고 있어요. 가르치는 아주 샘시하게
So you need to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So in order to benefit sentient beings, you have to achieve enlightenment. then why do you have to benefit sentient beings? Second question comes up, right?
Question.
Because,
Yes.
because, for two reasons. One, because they all want to be happy like we do. And the second reason is, they all want to be happy just like we do.
Is it on?
All sentient beings want to be happy just like we do. And the other reason is because we owe them a debt because they've all been kind to us in the past. In some way, some form or the other.
It's good, yeah. That's all more. I don't know if That is good. And why we say, then also I can question, why all sentient beings are kind for us? Right? Think about that. Then we say, that's sentient tamjugus. That's 단다게 수습은 제가 제 니가 아마도 같이 보시려고 그러was.
So, so because they have been very kind to us, right? We said because they have been very kind to us. And so how have they been very kind to us? In what way have they been very kind to us? And you have to think about that. And then we think about the mother of this life. When we think about the mother of this life, then we know in many different ways she has been very kind to us, right? And just like the mother of this life, these all sentient beings have been our mother in one of the lives.
진짜 삼시에 담장 무슨 다 파마 제뉴와 인자 아니 뭐들 다 되게 제비 까불 그런 거다 다 되게 세고 그래서 그래서.
And so at some time, every sentient being, everybody has been our mother, our father. So at that time when they've been our mother, they have been very kind to us. So therefore, we owe them so much.
근데 다 나도 삼시에 담장 가서 마 제뉴와 세서 가서 말이라고 그래서. 삼시에 담장 가서 마 제뉴와 세라고 그래서. 이나 무슨 말이라고 그래서. 이거 지원을 넣었어.
So we're saying that all sentient beings have been our mother at some time, or at some point. But are we saying they're all our mothers?
Can you say?
Are we saying that all sentient beings are our mother? Or we say they have been our mother at some time?
And what?
So it's not mother, right? All sentient beings are not your mother, right? Just because they have been your mother doesn't mean they are your mother, right? So if they have been your mother, do they have to be your mother? If they have been your mother, do they have to be your mother?
Not now.
Not now. 다다고 말했어.
배차는 먼저 단다 내려와 갖고 있어 말이나. 단다 가면 내려와 그러나. 먼저 티네지 제니나 티네지 인고 말았어.
So just like we have been teenagers, right? We've been teenagers. Are we teenagers now?
배터치 말이다스.
It's similar to that.
우리가 나도 선지 강한 것도 말을나. 다시 또 먹고 넣는 그래서.
So all sentient beings, if we say they are our mother, then we will be defeated by many logical reasons.
배나 어때니 다때를 보면 뭐 대리에서 대콜레라고 넣었어. 배나 남조 티네지 제뉴나 아니 남 티네지 이거.
So that's easy to understand, right? So if you have been teenagers, you don't have to be teenagers.
이나 남조 티네지 제뉴는 또 이거.
But we can come to realize that we have been teenagers, right?
대리로도 로시 말아. 그래서 티네지 제뉴 또 그로도 로시 말아.
So that mind is not a misconception, right? Mistaken mind.
말아. 가끔 나도 티네지 제뉴 말아 왔어.
That's because we have been teenagers, right?
다 만서 티네지 또 그로도 로시 와. 저는 다른 만서 티네지에서 지금 안 되거든.
But the mind, which understands teenager, is a mistaken mind, right? The mind that understands teenager is a mistaken mind.
가르쳐야 돼.
Why is that? Is that true first?
The mind that understands teenager?
Yeah, it's a mistaken mind.
For us now. 방금도 내가 여기서.
Do you mean understands teenager? Remembers?
학교생 것을
또 바꿔요.
하고 가래 학교생 그래서
저는 티네지 힘을 또 올려. 이거 로시로 왔어.
같은 줄에서 멜로디.
같은 데서 오대.
Do you mean definition of the word teenager?
No, no, no.
What do you mean?
The teenager.
오래되지는 말씀 못해요.
So let's say, you know, I'm a teenager, right? And I think I'm a teenager, right? I'm a teenager. Let's say I'm 16 years old. I'm not 16 years old, but let's say I'm 16 or 12 years old, right? What is teenager's age? Like
13 to 19, right?
13 to 19?
Yeah.
Okay. 16 years is good, right?
Yeah.
So 16
Right in
years.
the middle.
So let's say I'm 16 years old. And I think I'm a 16 years old and I think I'm a teenager. So the mind, which thinks that I am a teenager, is a mistaken mind, is it?
No.
Ah,
Right.
Yeah, it is
No,
mistaken.
it
It
is
is mistaken.
It's not a mistaken mind?
It is. If he thinks he's a teenager now.
Well, if you're 16 and you think you're a teenager, it's not mistaken.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's mistaken.
No. I'm not saying no.
Oh.
I am teenager. Okay, I am teenager, and my mind thinks I'm teenager.
Only
Okay, so the mind.
The mind of the teenager that thinks it's a teenager is a
Okay, so let's not get to that confusion. Let's say I'm Damcho, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Damcho, so my mind thinks I'm Damcho. So that mind which thinks I'm Damcho is a mistaken mind, right?
맞다.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think yes. I
Superada,
think yes.
맞다. 근데 제가 나 담주는 걸 놀러시면 담주려 되라.
그래야
무슨 말 정말
말다 저랑 그 똑불로디 가서 늘 녹실에 봐서.
녹실에 단단한 나 지금 지금 사람들이 로디 놀러시러 와.
그래도 녹실에.
어떻게 되라? 마다 틀리지 마이다 나 틀리지 인사 놀러시러.
나 지금 힘받는 입이 없어. 나 레스한테 녹실에.
놀러시 많이 받지. 다 단단한 나 틀리지 인사로도 놀러시러 와.
So when you are a teenager, you think you are a teenager. It's not a mistaken mind, right?
No.
It's not a mistaken mind.
I say yes. It's the way you said it. You said it.
No.
I am a teenager. I am teenager, right?
When
You're
I'm
saying
teenager, when I'm teenager, I say I'm teenager. It's not mistaken, right?
But that's you're a teenager, right?
So if I say, like say in my case now, right?
Yeah.
If I say I'm teenager, because I've been teenager,
We're a
it would be wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
어디 대중으로 와서 나 틀리지. 옛날 나 틀리지 제 용어 두글로도 놀러시면 와서.
But the mind that thinks I'm teenager is wrong, right? It's a mistaken mind at this point.
At this moment,
At age 40, you know, when I say I'm 16 years old, then I'm mistaken, right? But if I think I have been 16 years old, then it's not mistaken, right?
나 대학교서 오케이. 나 샘드 that. 샘제가는 내다 메이크 마치 용어 두글로도 놀러시면 와서.
So in the same way, that the mind which thinks that sentient beings has been my mother is not a mistaken mind, right?
다 샘제들 중에 말해서로도 놀러시러 와서.
But the mind which thinks that all sentient beings are my mother, you know, is mistaken mind, right?
나도 이 meditation always all 샘제는 my mother. 근데 로 겁나 겁나 또 버들 끼어 막 놓고 오시러 와.
Thinking that sentient beings are my mother, you know, would be a mistaken mind, right? So therefore you can't meditate on that. You will never come to gain any realization from that because it's a mistaken mind.
약간 좀 confuse, okay? 너도 마시고 먹어, 마시. 맛 제노, 제 제노 시로는 그 말은 너무 상관 말했어.
So you're not thinking that your mother, you know, when you're meditating on the recognition of all sentient beings as your mother, you know, you're not thinking of them as your mother, you're thinking of them as being your mother.
진짜 명확한 거라 상담이래.
Right? Do you meditate on the sevenfold causative instructions?
Yes, not. 내 삶은 다 자식들 이제
So if you don't meditate on that, there's no way you can generate bodhicitta, there's no way you can generate equipoise.
야, 데이터 이제 됐어. 야, 샤주생 사진 지주서 이제 좀 됐어.
So the root of the bodhicitta, you know, the Buddhahood, you know, is what? Compassion, right? Great compassion.
오케이. 이나 다 가서 나도 이제 마시고는 마시고는가 던들수 공고는 저는 다 바라트를 해서 와.
So this is how you are supposed to meditate on the recognition of all sentient beings as your mother.
삼지도전 내 말에서는 고마든 스텔로 놓으셔야 나서.
So don't meditate on sentient being thinking that they're your mother. that would be a mistaken mind.
So
you understand that, right? Sentient beings, all the sentient beings are not your mother, right? So all of you here are not my mother, right? But we're all about same ages, right? But you have all been my mother, right? So if I think about you as having been my mother, then that's good. That is possible, right? So when I meditate on you as being my mother, then that's not a mistaken mind. So this is just my doubt. I just doubt that maybe you might be also confused about that.
Some people or there's some talking, you got the little confused, you know.
So, for example, some people, when they point at a meat, when they point at a meat, a piece of meat, then they say, "Oh, this is my mother's meat." So then they point at that meat and say that this is your mother's meat, but it's not your mother's meat, right? So if you meditate on mistaken mind, you will never generate, the realization of that mind because it's mistaken. So if I think, Dolores is my mother, that mind can never be generated in my mind. Because there is a mind which understands that Dolores is not my mother. So therefore it's a mistaken mind, right? So if you meditate on mistaken mind, you will never generate it in your mind stream.
Okay?
And so now meditate on that thought, thinking that all sentient beings have been my mother.
Okay?
So then again you ask, question, how have they been your mother?
We are the scientists, okay? Investigation, very detailed, one by one. 다 가르쳤나? 다른 것도 개월 통화에 말했어. 개월 통화면다 다 개월 말라 나시 드시 공시 개월스나 시리즈 좋아. 다 나시를 세고시는 다 아마 명을 깨요 말했어.
And so that's because there's no beginning to the life, right? And then every time, when you are born, you're either born through womb, or from egg, or from the heat, moisture, and so forth. So there are, I think, there are 4 different types of birth. So as long as it is birth from the womb, then you must have a mother. Right? And so there's no beginning and there's no beginning to the rebirth, and how many rebirths that we have had, how many births that we have had, that were from through the womb, it's countless also. And so in this way, we have to think how there were past lives and there are future lives.
단단 만족이라 리당 셈니로 리당 셈니가 아니 제가 깨라는데 되지 제대요 아니 니네가 제대요 지금 현시 제대 니용 걸려서 니네 제대한테 아니 이 가리 인포 가리나 그런 제지 너만 제지 심하는 거 깨고래 현시 제대다 그 제대로 조심해로.
So right now we have body and mind, right? So this both in the body and mind comes from its cause and conditions. And so when we talk about the cause, there are two different types of causes. Like one is called a substantial cause, and then another one is called the auxiliary cause. So the substantial cause is the cause that changes, into its nature. That changes, into its nature. So the cause of the mind, the substantial cause of the mind has to be a mind, because that is the cause of the mind, which changes into the mind itself. And so when you produce it, it has to be a mind itself also. So from the wood, comes the wood, and so forth. So of course there are other things that also make it contribute, in producing the mind, and other than the mind itself. So those are auxiliary causes.
정확하게 만복권을 하고 온데 와서 everybody know that we are not many hundreds many times, right? Then look at that. 대리진은 가지 소소 깨워라 도망으로 삼다. 대성들은 다 선제된 경한테 막 제용해서 예사비를 또 삼모대 휴치물이 제가 깨고 그래서.
So in thinking in this way, thinking that there's no beginning to the rivers, in that way, also living has been my mother. And so that's how you think, that also living has been your mother. So if you are not able to generate that mind, thinking that also living has been your mother, then it will be impossible to generate great compassion.
Geshe said that there's two ways you can meditate on bodhicitta. He said the one way is sevenfold cause and effect instruction for those with inferior capacity, and then equalizing and exchanging self for others for those of superior capacity. And so that's why I'm having a little confusion when you say, without thinking of them as having been your mother, that it's impossible. Because I thought that there's the other way that you can meditate on bodhicitta.
So you have to. It has to even the other method of equalizing and exchanging self with others has to be preceded by that recognition of both as a mother, and remembering their kindness, and then wishing to repay their kindness. So if you don't go through that without going through this, then there's no way to also generate that realization of equalizing and exchanging self with others. So you are equalizing yourself and then exchanging their suffering with your happiness. So if you can't think of them as being your mother, or in some way very, very kind to you, then there's no way you can do that, perform that exchange. So just like we can go through many difficulties, hardships, right, for the sake of someone that we love, that we are close with, but we won't be able to go through that hardship. We will not, forbear those kind of hardships just for strangers. But we will willingly take that hardship, for the sake of someone that we love or someone that are close to us.
Okay.
So don't think that you're going to have to, go through that recognition of what's being as a mother, remember their kindness, and wishing to repay their kindness before you meditate on equalizing and extending self with others.
Okay. Okay. 근데 다 마세를 가르치고 있는 다 스마 체니와이나 아니 수수께서 수수 볼라야 저거 가세요 하고 그랬으면 다 아마 가르치면서 하고 뭐
So those who have been your mother, those of you who've been mother, know, how kind the mothers have been because they know how much they care about their children. So now you understand how to meditate on recognizing all things as your mother? How do you meditate on that? What kind of mind do you have to think about? So if you think that all sentient beings are your mother, are you meditating on your sentient being as your mother? Yes. Are you meditating on that, recognizing all sentient beings as your mother or no?
Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
Having been.
So yeah, that's true. So you have to think, have been, not they are your mother, but they have been your mother. And then just to reconfirm yourself, with that thought, thinking that also being have your mother, then you think about the reason how they have been your mother. Because there's no beginning to the rebirth, and then every time you are born, you need a mother, and therefore, all sentient beings have been your mother in that way. In some way, they all have been your mother. If you think like that with the reason, then your thought of thinking that they have been your mother will be more stable. So any mind that understands something, based on the logical reason behind that, and that mind becomes more stable, right? So without that, logical reasons support, if you just think, oh, maybe it's like that, maybe it's not like that, that mind is not very stable, right?
We go to Whole Food, we buy some maybe yogurt or something, then we know how fat, how much fat, then we call vitamin C, vitamin G, vitamins. We can see it, then we put that, we have very strong.
So when you see those levels, right, all those levels, which says that how much protein there is and how much what kind of vitamins there are and so forth, then you believe that because you have read it yourself and you know and you believe that this food is very good for you. It's very strong. That belief is very strong. But if you don't see that level and someone just says, give you this, in a plain container, says, okay, this is very good, and because you haven't seen it, you haven't really read the level, and therefore your mind will be in a doubt, thinking, oh, maybe it's So that because you don't have that logical reason to support your thought, and therefore it's not going to be very stable.
Okay,
Question?
Yes.
Geshe-la, is it that all beings truly have been our mothers, or that it's just like a useful fiction to think that way, because then we can have compassion without any discrimination against anyone? It seems impossible that everyone could have been one's mother. Why couldn't just everyone in one country have been one's mother? Just have to have the whole, universe.
I'm going to 아마 제 영화를 삼바다 다 좀마지 삼샤는 데가 가서 세면 페이지를 다 좀마지 삼샤 그러기 뭐냐 하나 하나 아마 제 영화를 했어.
뭐는 저는 제 영화를 했어요. 제 영화 도벨로도 많이 영화 도벨로 얘기잖아. 제 영화 도벨로 이제 딱 로테가 그래. 잡혀서 네. 로테 때문에 로테 야와요. 많이 영화 도벨로 제 많이 영화 도벨로 좀 야와서 그래. 뭔가 가서 로테 잡혀서 영화를
Yeah, it's well again, just like we talked about earlier, if it's it's not really that, if it's not really true, if it's not really that they have all been our mother, then thinking that they have been our mother, it would be wrong again, right? If they really not have been your mother, then that would be wrong conception, wrong thought, right? Mistaken thought. So that would, again, that way you would not be able to generate any realizations. But yeah, it is true that they've all been there, your mother. They have all been your mother at some point, in some life, and they have been your mother. So when you think about the reason, logical reason, to support, these two thoughts, thinking that they have been your mother and thinking that it's not possible that they have been your mother, then you will always find more supportive reasons, to prove that they have been your mother.
대 아마 로지징을 시에 있으나 아주 고야시구나 기실하기 그리고 기시다가 와서 개준 이제 나쁘지도 않고 와서
maybe Deborah knows the translator Chamba, the black guy,
Yeah.
The black monk, right? Yeah,
대리 인사 아니 개들이 재미를 두는다 아무렇게도 말은 she maybe she live for us a place then she told Geshe-la, black monks, Geshe-la's older brothers, reincarnation. She has very strong reasons. I don't know how she sees, maybe she has some English.
clairvoyance.
She told Geshe-la, your older brothers die back earlier.
So I don't know about this lady, but maybe she's clairvoyant, and she told Geshe-la that this monk, this African American monk, is the reincarnation of his older brother.
Geshe-la's older brother.
Geshe-la's older brother. And then she told, and then he said, yeah, could be, why would he believe her? But then she also mentioned that your brother didn't have a peaceful death. He had a very rough death. He didn't die peacefully in the bed. He was like murdered or killed, something like that. She didn't say specifically by what and so forth, but it didn't have a peaceful death in the bed. Rather, but it had a very rough, death. And then, he was killed or something, stabbed or something, and then he was really surprised that it was really that his brother died because somebody stabbed him.
Geshe-la knew that.
Geshe-la, yeah.
Oh, that was in fact how we.
That was in fact, yeah.
That 그러잖아 Geshe-la brother 같이 마트니 같이 리강 세버 뭐 세사대요 어디 그 세샤 그 시샤 스트시제샤 몰라봤다 그때 토시 토되게 해서
yeah, and then also she mentioned another thing that made him believe was that he died on a hill or mountain, and then it was true that Geshe-la's brother was in a fight with people on the mountain, and then they stabbed him many times, and that's how he was killed. And so then he had to he really believed her that this was this was the reincarnation of his brother.
근데 이제 다티 문화보다 담고 별점을 왔어. 로바이 나왔더니 그걸 아마 대치도 왔어. 시각고 문화보다 너무 나쁘는데 아마 시도 왔어. 다 그때 사타 림리가서 아마 많이 버터 돈 왔어. 당연히 때 리필 성당 그래.
And so in his past life, he was a Tibetan person, right? And his mother was a Tibetan woman up in Tibet in the Himalayas, right? And in this life, he is born in America, right? Right. So now this life, his mother is American, a black woman in America. Right? So just because you're in different country, different continent, it doesn't prove that you can't be born in that place.
근데 그냥 대제메디 칼라거든 가서 대마 성사시 한 기질하고 다다 사우시 그 자마 자서 되고 그래 코펠로 그래서 아니 제메 아니 니마치 기질하고 딱이 사오든지 코펠로 송스 아니 기질하고 말라도 그러고 있어 아니 제메 딱그 투용도 말했어 딱그 투용 말했어 아니 라고도사 그래서 뭐 그 투용 말로 그 뒤급로 그 나타 개개만 코펠로 그래 그 좀 벨로 벨이 요직대 되는 투용 남거라 사서는 그 종을 그 야서 용마서 말이지 이게 되게 대부주셔요.
And then one time, one of Geshe-la's nephew, who was a monk in India, he decided to go back to Tibet, to visit, and just for short time. And then, so he went to Tibet to visit. And then Geshe told this lady that his nephew went back to Tibet to visit. And then she said, "Oh, really? Oh, that's too bad. Now he won't be able to come back. He won't be able to return." And then it was really true that when he was trying to come back, he got to Lhasa and then he died there. He wasn't sick or anything. When he went from here, he went from India. He was very healthy, strong man. But then when they went back, he died in Lhasa. So it's not like an ancient history. It's just something that happened recently.
And who was this woman? What was the connection with Geshe Tsoga? Was she a student?
She was Geshe-la student. I don't know where she. I think she is maybe North Carolina or something.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah. Today look at that. Anyway. 심지어 아주 마 제일 왔었는데 제대로 영어 말했었나 모르셔도 돼요. 나도 때문에 말했어. 제일 왔었는데 제대로 영어 말했었나? 아니야. 맛이 제대로 말해.
So yeah, so everybody has been our mother. So we have to think that they all have been our mother. That's the correct mind. If you think that I don't think they have been my mother. Some of them might have, not all of them. Think like that. That would be a mistaken mind.
Okay? This is that you can think logically.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Now we start with this chess, okay? Talk too much. 난 마시냐고 검쇼 와서 주막인데 사다 주말아 마시고 나 가려서 기재해서 눈치다는 로 따다야 돼. 내가 외워져 쇼.
So anyway, meditate on recognizing what's in me as a mind. And then next week, Geshe-la asked you how do you define the recognition of what's in me as your mother, and you have to be able to tell. Thinking that they have all been your mother.
전체에서 접하는 내 에비전스 어떤 데 대신대 we have to know the reasons because there. This is a sign.
So Buddhist science.
Buddhist science, okay.
The logical reason.
Logical reason. Exactly we know. 하고 그랬어. 그래서 깨월 통하면 그럼 코월 통하면도 타마 코월 통하 열어요.
So because there's no beginning to the life, right? Is there a beginning to samsara?
And 코월 타면 다 열어요.
What about the end to the samsara?
Yeah, so that's one thing.
There is an end to the samsara? Is there an end to samsara?
Yeah.
Yes.
When all sentient beings
Good.
are enlightened.
When is the end?
When all sentient beings reach enlightenment.
Okay, then.
I did have one. If that's the only thing I was wondering is if samsara is completely beginningless, then how does it have an end? I know that it has an end, but if it's beginningless, then it would seem like it should be endless.
The end 열어요.
딱 도목에 타면은 난 담에 타 걸리는 거였어.
타면 다 열어요. 통제 상담했어.
거기에 타면 요만해.
거기 타면 거기 타마.
거기에 타 요만해.
거기 다 열어.
거기에 타 걸리는 거였어. 거기에 도마면은 난 타마 가려고 그랬어.
타마 예르면 나도 달띠로 또 수하고 그랬어. 가지 열어서.
그럼 숙개지 거야. 그래서 그랬어.
거기 타마 뽕아요. 거기를 좋아해. 거기를 거기 주는 거기 다 봐. 거기를 끼워 내먹고 거기 주는 거기 다 줘.
So there is an end to the samsara because you can abandon samsara, or you can when you abandon or when you have eliminated all the delusions and all the karmas, and then you don't have to be born again. You will never fall into samsara. So that's the end of the samsara.
너무 깨워라 타마이란 말이야. 깨워라 동이다 온다면 더 가지고 말이야. 코와는 담이다 그랬어. 코와를 가지 깨먹으면.
There's no end to the life. There's no beginning to the life. There's no end to the life. The life will be there all the time. With rebirth, right? Birth will be there all the time, or life. But for the samsara, there's no beginning, but there is end.
이제 가리나 상담하다. surpassing 코와를 가리래. 코와 타마이 타 예전 가리래. 상담하다 좋아.
So you have to think, what is samsara? What do you mean by there is an end to samsara?
좋아. 라파로지나. 맞아, 레다 님고 왕기. 아니, 땅. 아니, 토 소스테니 만년에 받아 양에다 다 깨와 레미 차 그거 또 되지 않대 그래서 대가리 깨와 레미는 거 타봐.
So what is samsara, or the cyclic existence, the circle existence? What is the cyclic existence? What circle are you talking about? The circle of what? You know, the life and death, through the power of karma delusion. You know, when you're born again and then die and then born and die and born, so when you go in that cycle, through the power of karma delusion, that's called the cyclic existence.
Okay. Anyway, when is the end of samsara?
When ignorance is eliminated.
말이고 찾아봐. 말고 빵거라다. 내가 타봐서 봐. 어땠어요?
Is it enlightenment?
I was going to say when karma has been exhausted.
Is it enlightenment?
Yeah, when all sentient beings reach enlightenment, yeah.
Yeah, then. 가장 고아보아라 사제고 말이에요.
So are you saying that you have to be enlightened in order to be free from cyclic existence?
No. Yes, close.
Did the Buddha, because the Buddhists know everything, did they ever predict when the end of samsara would come?
Yeah.
They did?
Yeah, after
This year.
2012.
This year? Right.
가서 사제가 떠오르세요. 고아.
과학에 담아도 가지고 그랬어. 상계 떠오르면서 또 상계 농대나라고 그랬어.
말이야. 사제가 다치고 같은 건 거기 다 말했어.
뭐 두째서 뭐.
되세도 다 되세기면 소소 깔을 갖다 들어가랬어.
그래서 상계 생겨라.
사실 제가 지나서 가지 샘제가게 고아까지 많았던 거기 다 말했어.
맞아. 두째도 상계 생겨라다. 가득방으로 그래. 과학 가득방으로 그래. 상계 생겨라. 근데 생겨라.
다 제한테 딱 가득방아서나. 가지. 고아방에 방아 톱이 되나? 아니 다 그래. 다와 톱이 되나?
로스 그러다 가서 가와서. 가와서 그래. 가서 근데 또 두째지 샤워라. 어때려다? 저는 우리저번에도 로신 나와 저는 더 저를 세줘라. 어디 농도 나야 되겠다 나가줘라. 그래서 나가야 돼.
대체 농도에 나가는 거래. 이제 야 뭐 요청 들어가겠지.
이제 상이 해도 힘들어.
사진 개절에 사진 소요 말이야. 그죠? 같이 마서나 그 사진으로 나는 그냥 대대로 왔어. 그 요디브라는 그냥 사진 고바로 왔어요. 나도 고바한테 제가 말았어. 사진 개절에 사진으로 자 소요 말았어. 이런데는 고통을 사지.
So I haven't heard any place in the way Buddha said that, you know, okay, at this time, you know, everybody will begin life, you know, everybody will be free from cyclic existence. But I'm sure he knows, right? He has to know. He's omniscient. He knows. He has to know because he's omniscient. But you know, I don't think he has mentioned anywhere where when all sentient beings will be enlightened. That will be long time away.
같이 나오자와나 다른 요니 동갑자 수주 송아가 강가 사줬나? 아니 갈리 대응도 마저 인형도 상대로 그러었어. 그 뒤로 와나?
그래서 여러 데는 사는 사람까지 잡으러 봐. 맞아면 가상이에요, 뭐.
또 맞아야 돼. 같이 다
같이 두세 상계고 왜는 그걸 잡으러 맞아. 그걸 맞아는 거 상계예요.
문체에서 다 맞아 되는 거라서까지.
아 됐어.
딱 뒤에서는 상계로 같이.
지난때는 상계는 두세들은 상계 말씀 몰라. 상계를 숨는데 두세까지 잡으러 맞아는 거 게야 말아. 자연이 말아. 자연 요번 상계 생겨라.
자연도 나가서 관계 강가선주가 상계로 상계 송셔야 된다. 깔리
두세들라도 이제 뒤에서 수저를 송아 말아.
대대 송아 말아.
네.
사실 전체가 되는 마소하게 따지게 되는.
그래도 거기가 장이지 잡고 오라도 그 상계 두세들도 그런 상계는 깔리 전에 상계 뭐 맞아 상계예요.
되는 거야.
그래.
당내에서 나 마소한테 되려서 다. 그지. 제가 루티로 상계 마소제 되네. 그지야.
내가 맞을 때 되겠어.
같이 자들이 되더라고.
때때는 제일 많았죠. 근데 상계 전 성만.
제일
근데 가서 그 릴러진 때때보다 상계 생겼다.
콜로로지 연하다데 좀 들어봤어요. 콜로로지 때나 나한테 세바를 사지했나? 그 저도지 내가 그 사자지요. 나에게 되는 거지. 뭐. 사실 빠져나가 다른 나 가운데로 생각하고 사지로 빠져 너도 때까지 고마워.
답변은 미치 코라 답변은 미 강사치라고 지 코다 로추지라 상기 송배는 그거까지 잡으라.
생고 잡으라.
잡으라. 거든 내려져 되는 거야. 거든 내려져 되면은 내가 그도 상기 뭐라.
대사지가 다
상기 뭐라. 이제 상기 송수 뭐라.
대대 송마.
어디 나오지라.
지금 이러면 당에 삼으로 가야 돼. 그래서 사지가 상 연디는 사지가 이런 때 잡아이나. 양 거기자 저도 내려 쓰면서 네.
상기가 하려 말해서 나 말해.
아,
나 말해. 그 상기가 하려.
그래 너도 이제 된다 그래서 그래서 오시죠.
So anyway, it's not clear in any scripture when where Buddha said, where Buddha mentioned that sentient will all be free from psychosis at such and such time. I mean, as he mentioned, but this is Geshe-la said, this is just his thought that if he mentions it, then some people they say, oh, Buddha has mentioned it. I'm going to be enlightened at this time. I don't have to worry. I don't have to work hard. I'm going to be enlightened at that time anyway. Buddha has mentioned it. But Buddha will not mention it if they're going to be lazy, right? He also will know if they're going to be lazy, so he will not mention it.
같이 고와 같이 봐나 거기에 담아 둬버려서 이 시도까지 봐와야 산지로 그랬다 산지 손을 했어. 또 타와 같이 돌나 가니까 고와를 얘기 와. 얘도까지 봐와나 다들 고 얘도까지 봐와나 아니 타와 둬버려서 고를 기원하고 말했어. 시도까지 봐와나 산지로 그랬어.
So there are two kinds of obstructions, right? Obstruction to knowledge and deluded obstructions, right? So whenever you have abandoned the deluded obstructions, then you have achieved liberation. Whenever you have abandoned all the obstruction to knowledge, then you have abandoned. Then you have reached a state of full enlightenment.
다 가동하고 되는데 다 빠져서 뭐 송대 봐. 다 나가서 정말 좋고.
And so last time we mentioned before, right? Previously we talked about the abandonments, right? The abandonments are abandoned on which path and so forth, right?
Okay. Okay. 당어도 빼졌다. 다 빼졌만 있어요.
So now we follow the text.
Okay. 단 이발은 선이 예와 미게 나오자. 다시 제대로 나와서 이제.
Okay.
우리 발은 선이 예와 미게 나오자. 다시 나와서 제대로 나와서.
Oh yeah.
나와서 정하셔 봐. 아니 이발은 선이 예와 미게 나오자. 다시 제대로 나와서. 뭐는 게 중에서 지방에서 이렇게 막 남짓들이 있어.
So now this is the presentation of the paths, right? The second has 5 aspects: definition, divisions, synonyms, etymology.
What page are you on?
37.
Oh, 37.
Yeah.
37, 48.
And then there's etymology and the mode of production.
Okay? 다 랑게 되니까 그래서.
So what's the definition of path? Can you read that out? Can you all read that?
An exalted knower, which is influenced by uncontrived intention, definitely to emerge.
딱 연주에서 해야 될까지? 아니, 딱 고아를 던져주려. 고아를 내버주기로. 고아를 던져주려 나가겠어.
So definitely to emerge. The intention is definitely to emerge from what?
Emerge.
What is emerge? What is the word emerge here?
From delusion.
Huh?
Emerge from delusion.
From, so it means what? To come out, right?
To come out, yeah.
From where?
Samsara.
Samsara, cycle existence, right?
단 이보다 이제 거기에 가서나 통화통화 yes.
So that's the definition of the path, right? The exalted knower, which is influenced by the uncontrived intention, definitely to emerge. And then there's the divisions, and then the path divided in terms of object. There are 5, right? The 5 path of accumulation, and so forth. So you know what are the 5?
Accumulation, path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, meditation, and more learning.
Yeah.
다 총음 써야 돼. 남 거기 대화 치주 가리고 남 담아지나. 총전에 다남 담아야 돼.
So the path of accumulation is the first path, right?
Yes.
So whether it's the hero's vehicle, or Soji Raja's vehicle, or the Mahayana vehicle, the first path is always what? The path of accumulation, yeah.
근데 대리가 또 받대는 도서나는 조남스.
Then if you go to the higher realization, then what? It's the path of preparation.
근데 대리가 또 많이 되면서 또 봐야나. 아니 도남스.
Then you move again higher and you will come to realize emptiness directly, and that's what part of seeing.
아니 대리가 대해서 차로 이는 다 앞에 봐야 거기까지 들어오나 아니 다 도남스.
And then after that, whenever you start to among the two subtle and gross grasping at true existence, whenever you start to abandon the grasping at the gross grasping at true existence, and then you have entered into the path of meditation.
아니 대까지 봐나 아니 다 성경을.
So then, whenever you have abandoned grasping at true existence completely, all the subtles and the gross, and that's when you achieve the path of normal living.
Then she will learn it. Then it will just sleep. Which that thing, then the she will that's one of the nice and was that she said that another could be to the other language, Chetam, Lama of John Lewis. It is general. That negative going in that Yamjini is
So in terms of the object, there are 5, right? In terms of the object, 5, the path of accumulation and so forth. And then in terms of periods, right? Then there are 3, the 2 meditative equipoise and subsequent attainments, and the path that is neither of those 2. So we know about these already, right? The meditative equipoise, the subsequent attainment, and the neither of those 2. And then, so anyway, so the details of each of these will come later, so we won't go through that one by one now. And then in terms of the support, it says in terms of support, support or basis, I would say maybe basis, on what basis you generate those paths, on the basis of, then there are 3, right? There are the heroes, Soji-Rajas, and Bodhisattvas.
Okay.
And then there's a definition of the path of accumulation, which says clear realization of the doctrine. So the definition of the path of accumulation is the clear realization of the doctrine. And then there are 3 path of accumulation. The path of accumulation is the heroes, path of accumulation of the Soji-Rajas, and path of accumulation of the Mahayana path. So when does the person first enter into the path? Whenever he or she first generates the path of accumulation, it's the first time when he or she has entered into the path, right? So if that kind of path of accumulation is conjoined with the bodhicitta, then that becomes the Mahayana path of accumulation. So if it is not conjoined by the bodhicitta, then it has to be either the path of accumulation of heroes or the path of accumulation of Soji-Rajas.
Understand? You're confused? Just go here or just going to irritate the
Mahayana one I understand.
Okay, that is it. That's one I also do was.
So there are three path of accumulations, right?
Just for my own clarity, I want to make sure I'm not mistaken. So the difference between the here, entering into the here, and the solitary realizer, because the difference between here and solitary, that one group, and in Mahayana I understand, conjoined with bodhicitta, I get that. So here and solitary realizer, the difference between here and solitary realizer is the first one wants to have, here path wants to have a better next life, and solitary realizer wants to break free from cyclic existence for themselves only. Is that correct?
There is.
거기까지 빠지죠.
또 말다 가래 되지는 나한테 내도 점차를 가래잖아. 거기 나한테 점차를. 그 대중 사람도 가고 대중 사람도 전생 생활 계속 잘 하고 있어. 가래 생활인데 거기다 나한테 돌아온다. 그러면 가서 내도 점 차고 있어.
다 앉아서 다시 그래. 아니 주고 지금 서자 고초되는 데네. 공자고 무슨 아니 또 이동생일 때 방고 그것은 내려고 전에 상대가 가져야 따라는 대처를 했어요. 그래서 아니 얘들은 다 아니 주고 제대 다 주고 더 보고 그것은 아니 다 건강 담에 공부 누구라고 하면 아니 이게 좀 되어야나 아니 다 니도 잘하고 있어요. 거기 다 빠지셔야 돼요. 빠져.
니도 또
니도 또구나. 니도 또 이제 다 어느 소소 들어가요. 어느 소소 쭉 나 세트가 아니야 우리나. 그 주부 스킬을 공략을 가지고 또 보고서 고아방 고도서. 다도 그냥 저 이동 공제 저 신이 따라가 쉬나 너저 나한테 전화를 했어. 저 다음에 공제 저 신이 나는 쉬나 이게 전화를 했어.
So the heroes and soldiers, they both are same in terms of wanting to be free from cyclic existence. You know, it's not just the next life. The heroes also want to be free from cyclic existence.
Okay.
They want to be rid of cyclism as well. So the difference is in terms of the object of meditation, what they meditate on, and because of that, of course, there's a difference in the results also. So the results of the social rises are higher than the heroes, and so their meditation, their practice, is higher, is done for a longer time, then their results are also better. But anyway, they both are same in wanting to be free from cyclism, and mainly for themselves, So I can't stand this suffering anymore. I want to be free from this, So therefore, that reason I'm going to meditate on this path, And so anyway, so mainly meditating on the selflessness, of a person, is the heroes, and then the mainly meditating, and then through that, then you achieve the result, of the heroes path, And then you mainly meditate on the emptiness of duality, the emptiness of duality, and of the duality of differences of the subject and object, the emptiness of duality. So by meditating on that, then you achieve the result. So those who mainly meditate on the selfness of person is going to be the heroes, and those who mainly meditate on the emptiness of duality, is going to be the soterializers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. 다 년들이 주로도 년들 돌아가면 되니 때라 준비 줬어요.
So here, it might become more clear also. It says here, definition of hero path of accumulation is the clear realization of hero's doctrine. And then this has also the three, small, middling, and great.
다 데려려야 내가 제법 지졌으면 그래서
So each of these, the small, middling, and the great, has three: direct perception, inferential recognition, and subsequent cognitions.
다 그냥 내에서도 제법도 지지다 주도 갖고 있죠. 로리 틀림없이 해봤어.
So you know what is the direct perception, what is the inferential cognition, and what is the subsequent cognitions? Have any of you studied mind and mental factors? Mind and awareness?
I have the third one. I don't have the first two.
That's the only use here.
Direct perception and the inferential cognition, you know those two, but you don't know the subsequent cognition, right?
Sitang lori day was, lori day says. Tata time, oh, just forget. Tangesalana.
There's a sentence here that doesn't.
What is direct perception?
You see it.
You see it, right?
Yeah. And for instance, there's smoke coming up, so you know there's fire on the other side of the mountain. And then that's an inference.
Yeah, inferential cognition.
Inferential cognition. An example of.
Smoke is direct.
Yeah, that's correct. Smoke's direct.
Direct. You've
Correct.
seen smoke.
But inference is that there's a fire on the other side of the
This
mountain.
is the part.
But you can't see the
have to
fire.
see it.
Yeah.
You can't see it, it's on the other side.
Yes.
If you were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not so bad. Thought we should talk about it. Can get driven. Yes, talk about it. I they want to met all of the dollar to the job, Japan.
Yeah, so direct perception, you see something directly, right? You see the notebook or the flower, you see directly, so that's direct perception. And then inferential cognition, just like you said, you don't see the fire, but you see a smoke, and because of the smoke, you see, oh, there's a fire because there's smoke. When there's fire, there's smoke. When there's a smoke, there's a fire.
Right.
But when there's a fire, there's a smoke? Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, so when there's a smoke, there's a fire. So because of seeing the smoke, you come to understand that there's a fire also. So that's the inferential cognition.
And Geshe-la.
And then subsequent cognition? Anybody? What is subsequent cognition?
this is quite important. Karna 다들 조동한 통도 왔어. 그러고 얘도 통마도 있는 가라야는 얘서 세마를 그래서 되게 진이바 도도만 제일 좋아 그래서 양쪽도 있다.
Subsequent means what? Later. Right? You see first, when you see the first time the person or whatever you see first time, that's a direct and that's a valid cognition. And so the valid cognition, and then you see that person, and then you see it again. So the next time when you see, it's not seeing for the first time. You're seeing that you are seeing something that you've already seen before. And so that's called subsequent cognition. Mind and manifest.
You've already labeled it. All these down show.
Yeah.
Excuse me, there's a sentence that doesn't make sense. The sixth line down, it says the newly realizes selflessness of person. Should that be the newly realized selflessness of persons, dependence on the signs, such a thing? Doesn't make sense to say the newly realizes.
Yeah, that means realizing for the first time.
So it should.
That newly realizes. It's supposed to be the second person cognition is, for instance, that newly realizes.
Yeah, could be that. All right. Yeah.
So newly realized.
But it doesn't make grammatical sense the way it's put. It doesn't allow them.
The second
So what should it be?
inferential cognition is, for instance, the awareness that newly realizes substance of person independence on a sign.
Like Deborah said, should it be that newly realizes, or should it be the newly realized?
This is, for instance, the awareness that, I think it should be that, right? Awareness that newly realizes selflessness of person independence on
So
a sign.
that instead of the.
Yeah.
Okay?
It says here. This is someone did not share that.
다 뒤지라 당도 다 동본에서 얘는 제일 갔나 이제 처음에 지지 의식 같다고 했어. 의식 동본 같다고 했어.
It says here, right? The first direct perception is, for instance, the first 5 higher knowledges in the continuum of person on the hero's path of accumulation.
좋아. 라임이 가르다. 라임이 의식, 라임이 의식. 의식 뭐 이거 왔어.
So the higher knowledge is the higher knowledge of the divine I,
어떤 된 거야
and so forth.
아니 난 이봐 제발라도 봐. 대지게 떠올라 때문에 건강을 담는 썰도 들었다고 했어. 이거 참 말했어.
And then the second is the inferential cognition. For instance, the awareness that newly realizes selflessness of personal independence upon independence on a high, sign in such a continuum.
Okay, you understand? All doesn't color.
Independence on a sign. What does it mean? Independence on a sign.
Like a logical explanation.
Yeah.
Thought.
Yeah, okay. And then somebody teaches you consult Dharma in Geshe Tapas.
And then the third one is says here.
Tambo Saktora teaches you to turn it up.
Is for instance the certainty, consciousness which ascertains selflessness of person in such a continuum.
Okay?
Therefore, apply the reasoning also to solitary realizers path of accumulation. So you know that, right? How to apply that reasoning?
Okay, you know? Yeah, maybe one person to one. What? That's what I'm thinking about, you know?
So what is the definition of solitary realizers path of accumulation?
Oh,
Right.
yeah, they focus on the emptiness of duality.
Just clear realization of solitary
Yes.
I just remember what you just said. You know.
No. Definition here it says apply the reasoning, apply the similar reasoning to the solitary realizers. So it means like now this is in accordance with the hearers, right?
Right.
Now how will you explain that in accordance with the solitary realizers? So the clear realization of hearers doctrine, that's the definition of hearers path of accumulation. So what would be the definition of solitary realizers path of accumulation? That would be the clear realization of solitary realizers doctrine. Like that.
니들 아들이 정말 저거가 잡았나? 라자 정말 비지지 이동 도비 로세지 야 그래서 이제 좀 말해서 뭐야 거기서 다다 담에 도자 이게 담에 도자로
콜라 생일아.
네 라자의 주민도 라자 정말 세지로 다 대라야 아니 준비 쳤음지 다 대랑에도 제벌을 다 대가 누디 가세 인테가 안에 정말 집에 안에 제법에 가져왔나 안에 담에 도비 또한테 담에 들어오셔서 다 내라 또라테 이도도 들어오셔 그래서.
So it says second, the impression cognition is, for instance, the awareness that newly realizes selflessness of a person independence on a sign in such a continuum, right? So this is for the hearer's part, part of accumulation, right? The inferential cognition of the hearer's part of accumulation. And so for the inferential cognition of the solitary realizer's part of accumulation would be what? It's the awareness that newly realizes, instead of saying selfless of a person, the newly realizes the emptiness of duality. Right? There you can put the emptiness of duality, independence on a sign in such a continuum.
Okay? 아니 이바티 땡이 계시나? 단 이동이 계시다 하고서 동물 집에 같이 뒤지 계시. 요. 계시. 요 계시 나왔다. 이바티 뒤지 아니 빠라더니 이도도 아니 사도 있잖아. 이동 빠라더니 이도도 있다. 사도 도바다 그러. somebody 다 뒤지 이동이 계시다. 지시다.
And then the third one is for instance, ascertaining consciousness, which ascertains an emptiness of duality in such a continuum. So that will be the subsequent cognition of the small solitary realizer's path. Accumulation.
다 뒤태지 소리가 좀 나세. Okay. Who's good.
So that you can apply same to the Mahayana path of accumulation.
Okay. Yeah.
Question.
No.
How do you apply that to the same Mahayana path of accumulation?
One is conjoined with bodhicitta.
No. You don't want that. No, you don't want that.
So first we start with the definition of the Mahayana path of accumulation. What is the definition of the Mahayana path of accumulation?
Okay.
Definition.
Good out there.
Definition of here it is.
Yeah.
That's preparation.
So, 대신에 치기도 대신 통합 생이.
Oh, here it is. It's just changing them.
The clear realization.
Yeah.
Yeah, clear realization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just changing
야, 제일 대고 링다 오케이? 다 대라 예와 지발해서
So same kind of divisions, right?
다 잘 가잖아. 아니 다음에도 이동사가 다 돈이 시작을 했어요.
So for healers, it was suffering the person. For socializers, it was emptiness of duality. And then for the Mahayana, it will be the emptiness itself, right?
오케이? 근데 당도 통화시에서 해야 돼. 다 통화로 사이지. 통화 순간.
Yeah, so we've gone through all the path of accumulations of all three vehicles, right?
오케이. 니네 통화 되니까
What's the definition of the path of hero's path of accumulation?
야.
Definition of the hero's path of accumulation is a clear realization of the hero's doctrine.
How many there? Divides.
How many divisions? There are 3.
And how many each there?
Each of those there are 3. Direct perception, inferential cognition, and subsequent cognition.
Okay, how about one there?
Socializers.
Yeah.
The clear realization of the solitary realizer's doctrine.
Correct. And how many divide there?
3.
3. Then how about inside there also?
3.
3, right? Okay, then how about Mahayana? Yeah, meditative. What's
The
the
definition of Mahayana accumulation
yeah
is
oh
it shows my language to me. A clear realization of Mahayana's doctrine.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Okay, how many there divides?
3, and then 3 in each of those.
Okay, this is very important for everybody to know. Okay. Then next we go to Dajong,
So next we'll start from the definition of the path of preparation.
Okay. Then we stop there. Do you have any question? Yeah.
Geshe-la, I still just have one doubt about what I was asking earlier about bodhicitta. Because from my understanding, the purpose when we meditate on all beings of heaven and our mothers, it's true, but the purpose for us doing that is so that we can see all beings, so that we can work for their benefit equally without bias, without indifference to strangers and attachment and aversion. Equanimity. The same result of that can be achieved when we meditate on equalizing oneself and others, when we see all beings as equally wanting happiness and not suffering. And then from that, we can move up to exchanging self and others, when we see that in number they're more important than our own happiness. So that's what I'm wondering is that, it's just I have not, in the text that I read, I've never read that that's dependent on the sevenfold cause and effect instruction, that alone is enough for somebody, if it works for them. That we get to the same result of equanimity as we do when we see them all as being our mothers. It's just, I've never heard that it's completely dependent on the sevenfold cause and effect instruction, that it alone also can cultivate the leading bodhicitta.
방금도 감가 라쇼가 잡아지려 되는 다만이 빠지는 감가 빠는 거 먹어요. 저는 갖다가 빠는 라쇼 잡아 수술 니올라 잡아나 근데 수술 뭔가 다만이가 다 되지는 거 물로 빠는 거 먹어요.
So you must meditate on recognizing one's universe as a mother, remember their kindness and wishing to repay their kindness before you meditate on equalizing and exchanging self with others. So, exchanging self with others, especially that part. So when you equalize you have to, you remove this thought, of seeing someone as close, someone as far, and that thought, you remove that thought and try to see them all same, in the same, as close.
대주선에도 대내 다 성적을 맞춰서 가르치고 보고 이거. 성적하는 게 다 동안 싸고 그러고 선제. 로탄이 바이데 전사마나 다 성적을 갖다가 집어 있다고 이거.
And so then when you have this equanimity, then you see all sentient beings as same, right?
다 제된다 콘주 동안 무슨 되게 다 동안 나타나는 타밀로 저거라 가래 간다 콘주 가리서 가는 거. 가지 다 가려면 다 지금은 막 세워야 된다네 이제. 남남은 하지 마. 지금 막 세워로다. 아니 맛이 전체 주소 바라니까 그러고 그래서 빼지 등 세워야 돼.
So anyway, it is clear in the liberation in the palm of your hand that recognizes in all sentient beings mother, remembering their kindness and wishing to repay their kindness. And after that you have to go on both methods. It's clear in the liberation in the palm of your hand. You can read that in the liberation in the palm of your hand. It's very clear there.
Which is mainly like Chandrakirti's text. That's where it said Chandrakirti's text addresses the sevenfold cause and effect, and then Shantadeva's text talks about the equalizing exchange. It's just this is the first time I've heard that the equalizing exchange depends on the sevenfold cause and effect, because I've seen them both, like traditionally they're taught differently. Like in historically Shantadeva's text they talk about equalizing the exchange self for others, and then Chandrakirti's they talk about sevenfold cause and effect. And I'd understand if it helps the equalizing exchange, but this is the first time I've heard that it's dependent on that.
So read it first and you understand it. There's so many things that we have not heard. Yeah, so anyway, read it again and then see. Usually, like you mentioned earlier, that the exchanging equality self with the other is the method for the sharp faculty or higher capacity practitioners of bodhisattvas. But it includes that also in that practice. So you read it carefully, the text, and then again, if you still have a doubt, then we'll discuss more.
Okay.
It's good to have these doubts,
Otherwise, no one, everybody say, yes, no one doubt. Good. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Any others? Okay.
I don't know if we're going to revisit this or not, but when we talked about the different levels of the Bodhisattva path, and then practicing the 6 perfections, and you concentrate on one each level. My basic question is, what's the difference between wisdom on, is it the 6th level, and exalted wisdom on the 10th level? Is there a difference? I mean, there has to be, because there has to be progression. But, or are we going to come visit that again later in the class, is the question.
그때 얘가 결혼을 시작을 했어.
대파지다 빼서 되는 파지 뭐도 얼마 사체 시에서 파지 온도 가버렸어. 사체 되셔서.
Yeah, I think it will come later. In the explanation about the 10 movies, the 10 grounds, we'll talk about that. Yeah.
Okay.
근데 세션이 이제 짠이 샤워서 말하다 보면 파지를 두 대진으로 좀 마시고 그랬어. 시발 파지도 둘이 파지도 저기 파지도.
파지 짠이?
세션이 짠이. 예시로. 배로 주는 세션이 짠이 짜지로. 니니로 와. 대어줘서 말아. 아니 사통고 이제는 파지처럼 전에 바로 그랬어. 파지처럼 전에.
가는 얘기 봐서.
세션이 짠이 샤워로 막 들은 게 없어 말아. 아니 집에 파지도 초대시고 세시. 아니 집에 파지도 초대시고 세시에서 그거 막 방송이 그랬어. 파지처럼 전에 시 그랬어.
승균이 주사님.
파지 줄이잖아 마시고 와. 답도 뭐래.
승균이 주사님 어디 대화 하셨죠?
되게 마시. 배로 줄이 배지 주단이 짠이 와. 다들 가르는 세시라고 가르쳐줬나? 다들 요즘마다 초대시고 고가 되지 않아서 시대다. 아니 강가 되지 수준이 봐야 초대시고 시대다. 그렇게 시작했어.
Also, there's the relation of these 22 bodhicittas. There are 22 bodhicittas in terms of the example. So, with the example like the king like bodhicitta, or the shepherd like bodhicitta, and so forth. And so when you explain about these bodhicitta, they also relate that with the practice of the 10 perfection. They call it 10 perfection in that case. So starting with the perfection of generosity, then the sixth one, which is the wisdom, and then seven is the method, the power, the prayer, and exalted wisdom is the 10th one. But then it will relate those perfections with these 22 exemplary bodhicittas. Okay, to come up at that time.
Okay.
Geshe-la, is this the very text you study in the monastery?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
방송 전달하다. 사람 내가 배우면.
Yes, this is it.
The same one.
근데 전당하도록 시면 전당하 나가려 했어. 대한도 지금 나가려 했어. 그래서 이제만 배우면 또.
배정 맞다. 사람 배정 사람 배정.
이 사람들.
나 배정 사람 배정.
태어나야 말이야.
뭐 해야 됐어?
안 되버리 강아지 나도 로는 제사 봤어. 나도 전달하고 있지 또 저랬어. 근데 이제 이렇게 돼야 맞어.
Yes, this is the text. There's no other
And
text.
they memorize it, right?
Yeah.
저는 로스 배우면서.
Yeah, all that remember. I didn't memorize this all thing. Now I forgot all thing. 내가 담보가서 준다 했더니 사람 담보 준다 했더니 대주했던 사람도 내가
So this text says the tenets, about the tenets, then there's the 70 topics, and then there's the final ground. So Geshe-la, he memorized all of them already.
Wow.
This is we have to memorize first gen. I think 2 times, maybe 2-3 years that they have to memorize. And they have to debate. Okay? Okay, thank you everybody.
Thank you.